William Bill LaFortune is a district judge in Tulsa County. He served as the 34th mayor of Tulsa, Oklahoma from 2002 to 2006. Judge William LaFortune attended Cassia Hall Preparatory School, the University of California, Santa Barbara, and the University of Tulsa College of Law. Now he comes from a prominent family. His grandfather, Joseph LaFortune, was an oil executive and a noted philanthropist in Tulsa. His uncle, Robert LaFortune, was mayor of Tulsa from 1970 to 1978. They got a golf course with the name LaFortune. They got some parks by the name of LaFortune. So LaFortune is a known name in the city of Tulsa. He served as district attorney of Tulsa County, a special judge for the Tulsa County, and an assistant attorney general of the state of Oklahoma. So he's got quite a bio before his current role as Tulsa County district judge. I'd like for you really to show this man how much we appreciate him and what he's done for Tulsa. And let's just welcome Judge Bill LaFortune.
Thank you, Ted, and thanks to everyone that was here, particularly those that were called this morning on short notice. I do appreciate all of you being here. And I thank Ted for that, and I've had the honor and the privilege to speak to this group over the years, many times, and in all those capacities that you just heard about. And I've enjoyed it, and always felt the fellowship, and made a lot of great long-term friends from speaking to this group and attending the luncheons over the years. I go back to the fountains over there on Lewis way back when I was first running for mayor and first was introduced to the group. And I can remember that day as vividly as we're sitting here today, and how great a day it was, and how great a uplifting it was for me as a human being and as a Christian. And the friendships that I've made are still there today. That started that day. So I know a lot of the faces and individuals in this room, and I'm just really thrilled to be here. I think spoke a couple of years ago when I was in private practice between the public service stints, and enjoyed that. That was in this building. I'll tell you all the jobs. Some people will say, first of all, I want to take a note of my wife that Ted mentioned, my wonderful wife, who a lot of you all know very well. In fact, there's some people here that worked with her in Congressman Bridenstine's office, and she had campaigned for him and loved him and still loves him very much to this day. And got to work for him for at least a year or so as one of his field reps, and it was a great experience for her. And she made some great lifelong friendships also. But when Ted says she's involved with the adoptive or foster care, he's right.
May I interrupt you? Can you get a little closer to the microphone? They can't hear. Try it now.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
If I speak right into it. I do that in court too. I'll put my head down and I'll start reading. It happened this morning. We had a Hispanic case and an interpreter. And the interpreter finally said, Judge, would you put your head up and speak into the microphone better? So I did. But we'll try to do that better here as we go forward. But as far as my wife, she's involved in so many things that, and when Ted said that she's involved in foster care, she certainly is, and she's involved in, she's one of those people that just loves, she's a very strong Christian and very devoted to her fellow human being, especially those that have less, especially those that are abused, especially those that are in need of somebody and something, a valid need. And so I wasn't surprised to hear Ted say that, and affirm that she is, and she works so hard in so many ways. She works for juvenile court now, and I know this is about me, but I just got to mention this real briefly, that she works out there with parents and in the juvenile court system whose kids have been taken away, may or may not be given back to them depending on certain evidence and reports that what she might do. But she gets so busy and so stressed out and sometimes up and down. And she was just having it down into the weeds, like, I do all this, I just never had time for myself, and I said, honey, hang in there. And then she said to me Saturday, she goes, we we have a regular church we go to, but she says, but we became good friends with Pastor Bill Shearer. And Sandy Shearer had a Guts Church over when I was mayor, and we did a lot of things together. In fact, I remember we went down for relief with the Guts Church and the ORU kids back in October of the year Katrina hit. Whenever that was, that October, right after the September hurricane hit. We all went down a bus down there together and worked down there. But we became great friends with them. And she said, Saturday afternoon, she said, I want to go to Guts tomorrow. I said, what? She goes, I want to go to Guts. I just need to go to Guts every now and then. I said, all right, we'll go to Guts. And we went to Guts. And then, of course, it was a great message by Pastor Bill. And it was perfect. It was a message that went right to how she was feeling. She was feeling down, feeling overworked, feeling overstressed, taking on too much. And his message was right on. Isn't that amazing how that always works? Always works. And so she was uplifted. I was too, and we left. And yesterday she was, again, feeling a little bit down. And in the evening I said, now you remember what Pastor Bill said. Do I need to pull that up online? Because now you can watch all this stuff online. You can watch that service again. And she smiled. See, it brought her back around. And so I just wanted to mention that real quickly. The other thing about all the jobs I've had, a lot of people say, well, he just can't keep a job. It was not like that, with one exception we'll talk about here in a second. But most of the time I was moving up. I started as a baby attorney. Actually, I started out at law school at Telex Computer Products. Some of you remember Telex Computer Products at 41st and Sheridan. And it has the building, or had the building, the BOK's in now. And they sold out to Memorex. Well, I went out there after law school in 1983, 84. It was booming. They just finished that big lawsuit with Telex, and they were just, they had bought Raytheon Data Corp out of Boston. I went up there to help with that. And it was a great company to work for a couple of years. But I got my first real break in public service and public law with the Attorney General's office, which is a whole other speech I'll give another time. But in that one, I had actually supported the Republican candidate as being a lifelong Republican. I can't tell you that. I can't tell you what I am now. I'll tell you what I was then. Because judges are not allowed to say that. So I'm not saying that. But back then, I did help the candidate for Attorney General who was not successful. But I was this young guy I wanted to get into public service, so I put an application in with the Attorney General's office. And eventually got the job with the Attorney General then, it was Robert Henry. And so I actually commuted down, that's back when the AG's office was in the state capitol, and it was a great job. Great foot in the door. And so I moved up, you guys, from there, one step at a time. DA's office, back in the AG's as a supervisor, etc. But I was a special judge, as Ted mentioned, in the 90s. And really enjoyed that. I had a year on the criminal bench and then a year that I'd like to forget on the divorce bench.
Amen.
I remember every minute I was there. But it's not the most pleasant place to be, as you all, I'm sure, imagine. But I loved being a judge. And really the only reason I had left back in the 90s to do something else was the unfortunate death of David Moss, who was our longtime district attorney. And he died suddenly, as you all recall, that lived here back then, to a sudden heart attack on Thanksgiving weekend. I'll never forget that either. And getting a call on a Sunday afternoon of Thanksgiving weekend, getting ready to go back to work, that David had suddenly passed away. I'd worked for David, respected David, and greatly, and was a mentor to me. And of course, my first thought was not, I want to apply for the opening, because he just started a 4-year term, like 9 months earlier. But we did have a Republican governor, Frank Keating, and we did, and people started saying, maybe you should throw your hat in. Other people threw their hat in right away, which, as I understood later, the governor did not really appreciate it. I think the governor, as I heard later, was not so impressed with the people that didn't really give the proper respect and time to David's passing and respect to him over the course of those several days after that, before they started the politicking of getting a gubernatorial appointment. But I did eventually put my name in the hat, and I'd worked in the DA's office and I loved it. So I did do that for a while and moved up from there. But as I went forward in life, and as I made the only big mistake I've made in my life, and that was running for mayor. Well, that's just a laugh. Sorry, guys. No, anyway, it was not a mistake. I was very honored to serve. It was a great job for a lifelong born and raised in Tulsa. And as Ted said, I have a great family legacy with my Uncle Bob, and always looked up to him. I was very little when he was the mayor. Back when we had the commission form of government, we had the street commissioners and the police commissioner, and he was street commissioner for some time, and I probably was in elementary school during that period. But of course, always respected him, and for all the reasons you all know about him: integrity, honesty, faith values, all the things that he possesses to this day. He's 89, by the way, and doing very well. Doing very well. He lost his wife a few years back, but he had 6 kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids. And of course, you know, he's the granddad of our next mayor to be, who I'm not the uncle of. And I'm a second cousin. His mother, Susie, is my first cousin. So there was 21 of us. The park is named after Papa Joe LaFortune, who came here back in 1919 with nothing and worked hard. And was also a man of great faith and family values and faith values, and worked his way into having money. He did give back to the community and to Notre Dame University, where he was born and raised in South Bend. And back in that day, he actually had to leave school in 5th grade to work for the family, a family of 11 kids, Roman Catholic. And obviously. The priest at Notre Dame, I think this is a fascinating fact, the priest at Notre Dame at that time would educate the kids in South Bend who were from families that did not have any money or otherwise had to leave school to go work for a nickel a day back in that day. So that's the person the park is named after. And then he had only 4 children, who then produced 21 grandchildren, of which I'm one. So our family gatherings only happen once a year, because all the ones of my generation have kids and or grandkids already. We gather Thanksgiving Wednesday every year, and it's quite a deal. I don't know about 2/3 of the names of the people that are there, but they're all related some way or the other. So I'm looking forward to GT. I think he'll do a great job. My job now is Tulsa County District Judge. I'm a district judge for Tulsa and Pawnee counties. And it is an elected position, 4-year position. The judge who held this spot before me was Tom Gillard. And Tom was chief prosecutor for David Moss for many, many years, was a mentor to me. He then ran for a judgeship back in 1994 and got elected to it, and he served there until this last 2014, end of 2014. I ran for his spot. I filed for office in April of 2014 and did not have an opponent. So I took office in January of 2015, and I was assigned a full-time criminal felony docket. So that's what I do every day, all day. And I love it. And in fact, this is a classic example of God closing a door and then opening another door. Did I know that at the time? Do most of us know that? No. We're saying, why did you do this to me, God? What did I do to deserve this? But he has his plan, as you all know. And he had a plan for me. And I was basically out the door when I lost that race. And lost it on a Tuesday night and was to be out of the office by the next Monday morning. So you imagine the Wednesday after the Tuesday, I wasn't really in a great mood to be doing much of anything but mourning. And got through that and got out of the office. But basically, when you leave the practice of law, which is what I was doing when I ran for mayor, I was with a big law firm here in town. I was a partner. I was doing great. But I had the calling, I believe, to run for mayor when Susan Savage announced that she was not going to run again after 10 years. And that was another opportunity, like the DA job was. And encouraged by my family, friends, and by prayer to run for that job. And again, I loved it. It was a great job, very demanding job. It's but when to serve your community in that capacity, it's just a great privilege and honor and blessing. And I had a lot of great support from a lot of great people, many of whom are in this room right now, and I appreciate them to this day. But the job I loved the most of all the jobs was being a special judge. I enjoyed it because you're on the cutting edge of the law. You are in a position, as Ted said and Mike alluded to be listening to two sides. in making your best judgment call that you can make. And fairness is obviously, I think a lot of people, I think the defense attorneys will tell you I'm a law and order judge, and I'm proud of that. But my job is not only to be a law and order judge, but also to hear the other side, because everyone is and does have a right to be heard who's accused of a crime. That's the way our system works. It has to work that way. And I'm proud of that too. I believe those that come into my courtroom believe they are getting a fair shake. That, as Mike said, that I have listened. They may not like my ruling. I just left the case. It was a motion to suppress. The defense was saying it was a bad search warrant. When you do an affidavit for a search warrant, Terry can tell you, he was a former officer in Owasso, they'll take it to a magistrate and say, Judge, we need a search warrant. All right, show me your affidavit. Well, the affidavit has to have sufficient allegations or evidence in there to show probable cause to issue a search warrant. You don't want people searching your house. You don't want law enforcement searching your house without a valid probable cause reason to do so. And so they have to show that to a judge, an independent judge, and he or she reviews it. If they find sufficient evidence or probable cause, they issue the search warrant. The officers then, they don't have to take it immediately, but they have a certain amount of time. They have to take it and serve it, whether it's a business or a home. Typically it's a house or an apartment. Then they go serve it. Well, in this case, the defense, and they did serve it. In this particular case, they found 686 grams of methamphetamine. Now, that's 1.5 pounds of methamphetamine. And so they wanted me to throw that evidence out based on the fact that the affidavit for the search warrant did not establish probable cause. Well, I denied the motion, and but when I saw 686 grams of methamphetamine, I thought, please, because that's a scourge. Now, my ruling was on the law, because I had to find, was there probable cause in this affidavit? And there's something called the good faith exception, not to get too technical in this speech, but and I want to take questions. But the good faith exception means a law officer takes an affidavit and a search warrant to a judge, and even if later it's determined by some other court that there really wasn't probable cause to issue that search warrant, there's a good faith exception that an officer who walks out of that judge's office with that search warrant, if he, based on his experience and training, objectively believes there was probable cause, and he goes and serves that warrant and finds that evidence, the evidence still comes in under the good faith exception that a law officer acted in good faith and he found this evidence. So this is an example, because what I do really breaks down into jury trials and non-jury trial weeks. With the legislature, and we're state funded, the budget has cut the jury weeks that we have available to us to do criminal jury trials probably by a third or more. So we don't have as many jury weeks as we did back in my younger days anymore. But if we have a jury week, for example, next week is a jury week, I'll be presiding over a murder trial. And I've done several murder trials since I've been there. But during a jury week, we just handle the jury trials. We don't really handle all these other matters like the one I just talked about. And as far as the trials that I have presided over, now, ethically under the Judicial Code of Ethics, I'm not allowed to publicly comment on pending or impending cases. Just like I'm not allowed to talk about my party affiliation. I'm not allowed to do a lot of things. You can't even go to any fundraiser type events of any kind. Really. You're not supposed to. At least you're not supposed to use your position. That's basically a little, if you just it's common sense, like all ethics are to some degree. Your common sense will tell you just not to use your position as a judge to raise money for people and do other things partisan nature, or do things on a ballot initiative or anything like that. And you can understand the reasoning behind that. But some of the more cases of notoriety that I've handled, I handled the Papa John's murder case, where if you all recall, the Papa John's driver, he was unloading whatever you unload at a Papa John's out of a semi-truck trailer at 11th in Delaware at 5 in the morning. And if you all been over there for TU football games or any other reason, you know there's a parking lot for Bama right behind that corner Papa John's, just to the south of it. abutting it. And they parked there, jumped the fence, and we tried one of the 3 or 4. And sometimes you do trials with all 3 or 4 at one time. Sometimes you sever them if there's a reason to sever them, and you have to try them separately. We were trying this young man separately. But it was a robbery. It was a robbery that went bad. We have a lot of murders like that, where they were going to rob someone, but in the course of the robbery, without really the intent to kill, like premeditation, first-degree murder, someone gets killed. And this was a classic example. And they go to rob this man who's just trying to make a living. He's a truck driver, salt of the earth. And actually lived out of Texas, but was up here delivering those goods. And they were going to rob him for whatever reason they thought they could. And basically, the guy with the gun of the 2 kids lost it during the robbery and shot the man and killed him. And so I presided over that trial. He did get life. Now that is on appeal, so I won't comment any further, but that's what the public record would show so far, that we had a trial and there was a conviction. Another case I handled was, you remember the barbershop case up in North Tulsa? And that was a gang-related, and that's on appeal too, so I won't comment too much except what's in the public record so far, which is that we did have a trial, and the allegations in the public record that were put on at the trial. You have a barbershop up in North Tulsa that's open after hours. It's open different hours than what we would see maybe in other parts of town, but it was open in the evenings. So there was a gang deal. It was really I've been around, when I worked at juvenile court for David Moss back in the late 80s, we first started seeing gangs. We first started seeing crack cocaine in gangs. We first started seeing kids with guns. And you remember we had a police chief back then that was saying there weren't gangs. And I remember working out there in the trenches, and I'm thinking, really? Well, maybe they aren't, but they think they are. And they're doing the things that gang members do. They're dealing crack, and they're carrying guns, and they're getting involved in weapons offenses. So we've had that around a long time, but I really never had learned all the things that our law enforcement knows about gangs. The Bloods and the Crips and how they work, and the sets and the subsets. We had an officer testify at that trial who was the Tulsa Police Department's expert on gangs. So he was there to educate the jury about how gangs work, because in that particular case, it was purely a gang-related incident. There were gang members on one side in the barbershop, in different chairs, literally, in the barbershop. And one of them said something the other one didn't like. The other one that didn't like it said, "I'll be back." He goes and gets his buddy. The buddy gets an AK-47, and they come back and shoot up the barbershop. And so that was that case. I also did that case with the deputy sheriff. It wasn't a murder case. It was the sexual battery case that where the deputy was accused of sexual offenses. Knuckles was his name. That's on appeal also, but I presided over that trial. And that was, you wonder sometimes with the media, they were all over that one. And we'll have murder cases where there's nobody that comes and cares. I always kind of wonder. Someone's life's taken, this is a trial about it, there's a victim's family, and there's a defendant's family. I'll tell you, the one person who always shows up for the defendant. Always. Guess who that is? Mother. The mom's always there. And in a way, I really think that's a great thing, because mothers stand behind their kids no matter what. And that's what I think mothers should do. So those are the kind of cases I preside over. On the non-jury trial weeks, basically, we're hearing motions like the one I had this morning. We have our docket on a Monday, it may be 120 cases I'll call. Literally, 120. And of those cases, maybe a third are new cases that are just coming up through the system into the district court from the third floor, which is our preliminary hearing level. The other ones, which is very disturbing, are applications to revoke probation or to accelerate probation sentences. And that is 2/3 of my docket. If I have 120 cases, whatever that is, 90 or so, are going to be applications to revoke. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means is they got probation. They have been through the system once already. They got a deferred or a suspended sentence and were put on probation. And oftentimes, it's very simple stuff they're supposed to do. Like walk across the street and sign up with DOC. Like pay a little bit of restitution. like go get a drug and alcohol assessment and follow the recommendations. And you will be amazed how many just don't even do that. So a warrant is issued, they're picked up, we're paying for it, they're picked back up, they appear in front of me in custody, and I'll look at it, and then it'll just be what we call rules violations. Not a new charge. You have those that have new charges too. Obviously, repeat offenders. But I'll always say to him, really, I just do not, and I'll say it to him. I don't understand why you can just walk across the street and sign up for your probation. And then, there's always a reason. There's always something that they'll tell you. Most often is my mother was ill. Now, what do you say to that one? Or something more serious about my mother and her health. But one thing that you balance in this job, and I'm going to take some questions here in a minute, there are positive things that happen too. All right, I want to emphasize that. There's some great alternative programs, and you all know there's a criminal justice bill. I haven't even studied it, and I couldn't comment on it if I had that much. You're saying, well, Judge, you haven't studied that yet? Well, we're pretty busy every day, all day with the law as it is right now. And if it passes, I'll then take it in and we'll deal with it. But, and like I said, you can't get involved anyway in supporting or not supporting any legislation. But if a person comes in and they have an addiction, and I'm going to say 80% of our crimes are people that have an addiction to meth, alcohol, primarily meth and or alcohol. A lot of the DUI manslaughters, and I'm going to have a big one tomorrow, if I read about it in the paper Saturday, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but they did what they call a blind plea. If you can't reach an agreement with the state on a plea bargain or a plea agreement, and plead to the judge, and here's what we agreed to, judge, so here's what we want you to sentence this person to, that's easy, typically, 99%. Parties have agreed. You swear them in, and I do, when I give the oath, I do say, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Amen.
But, no criticism here, but there are judges who, for whatever reason, I've never asked them, I'm not going to. They'll say, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, I do. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth under pains and penalties of perjury? It's another one I've heard. And I'll tell you, when I was a special judge in the 90s, I didn't do the so help you God. And I don't know why. I think I was a little timid. I was a little worried, that somebody would criticize me. But, as your faith grows, and as you grow as a person, and as you age as a person, and you're more solid. I was only 30 years old at the time. I'm 59 today. I have no problems. So help you God. Because I think the law requires it's a solemn oath. It doesn't require that you say, so help you God. But I believe it's very important. And I believe it's very appropriate. So that's when I give an oath, that's what I do. But as far as the positive things that happen, you can plead into what they call drug court, DUI court, veterans court. We have a court for veterans and you talk about addiction problems, you all read about it. I'm not telling you anything really new on that issue, but it's true. It does exist. There's a program that I'm really supportive of. It's called Women in Recovery. I don't know how many of you heard of it, but it is done through Family and Children's Service. But it's women that have serious, usually meth, 99% meth, addictions. And they they get arrested for the 5th or 6th time, having had 4 or 5 previous felony convictions, and they're looking at prison for a long time. Well, this program will take them in, and they will work with this program for over a year to 2 years sometimes. And they will plead into it, blind, no agreement from the state. Judge, I'm going to plead blind to this Women Recovery Program. If I graduate in a couple of years and I come back, hopefully you will take into account that I've done this in the sentencing. Hopefully the state will waive whatever they have to waive to get to a probation sentence or dismissal. And it has been highly successful. In my court it has. All the courts have it. There's 6 felony courts in Tulsa. So, but I enjoy it, and I'm very proud that my colleagues have elected me to do that after a year of being there. But that program is great because what happens is I'll see these women, and we'll talk about men in a minute because they need it too. But I'll see these women in orange brought in after they shortly were arrested, and they look terrible, horrendous. A lot of times no teeth from meth use, and it's horrible. They're in jail a couple of weeks. They look a lot better. They really do. It's amazing they get more of the human glow we all have, that non-addicts have, and they start to look better, think better. And then when they go into this program, and they come back and we do reviews of them every 90 days or so, or 60, well actually 30 or 60 days, depending on what's going on. But when they graduate, they've reconnected with their faith. Now, it's not a Christian-based organization, but I can guarantee you from watching them and going to the graduations, they have found faith. They have found God. There's no doubt in my mind. You don't do transformations, in my opinion, like that, but without the help of God. They've reconnected with their kids and their families, and they have jobs, and they're going to be productive citizens again. And you all know addiction, how it works. You can fall back and fall off the wagon at any time. But it's just a very uplifting and very positive experience. I went to the graduation they had. There must have been 500 people there, mostly family members who had written them off in the past. Done with them. We've helped you as parents or grandparents or uncles or aunts or brothers or sisters. We have helped you. Kids, we put up with mom and dad's abuse and addictions. And so it works wonders. And I'm very, very proud of that program. And all our drug court and veterans court, all those programs are good alternatives for primarily they're not in if they're violent. Drug court doesn't take people with violent charges or violent offenses. And sometimes that's not so good if it's not a really terrible violence. You can tell I've been doing this job too long. But I used to do that. Everything is violence bad. It is. But as you will also know, our prison system right now is beyond capacity. And that's a whole other speech too that I won't get into. But I love the job. I love the criminal side. If I'm ever reassigned to a civil docket, they'll be dragging me to it, because it's just, to me, no offense, I know I'm going to be on YouTube, but it's a bit more boring, isn't it? It's not quite as exciting as the criminal docket. I enjoy criminal law. I interned as a third-year law student for David Moss at the courthouse. I've been running that courthouse since 1983, in one capacity or the other, except for my term as mayor across the courtyard, or the courthouse plaza. So I love it. I love that work. And it's kind of one of those things, a lot of the cases I've had, the murder cases, First 48, I don't know, a lot of you probably watched First 48. For whatever reason, Tulsa has a lot of murder cases on that First 48 show, and I have to deal with it because now the defense attorneys are coming in saying, listen, if the jurors have been watching this stuff, this guy's already been proven guilty in 48 hours, and they've watched this, how can they come in and be a fair and impartial juror in his trial? So we're dealing with all those issues. But I've had at least 4 or 5 of those First 48 cases in my court for trial. And it's funny, when we bring jurors in, those of you that have been through jury selection know how that works. You're up in a panel, and the judge asks you questions, and the lawyers ask you questions, and a lot of times very personal questions. But in criminal law, one of the questions they'll always ask you is, do you watch CSI? And boy, everybody raises their hand. I don't watch it. But I guess it was CSI New Orleans, CSI Memphis, CSI Dallas, CSI LA, Vegas. And they know the characters. And the lawyers will ask a juror, just an average citizen like all of us, sitting there, okay, who's your favorite character? So-and-so. And I'm just sitting there going, how do these people do? And they watch it. So the big question they'll ask them is, hey, now, the fact you understand in the real world, no crime is solved in an hour or 50 minutes with ads. No crime is solved within 50 minutes. The DNA expert doesn't go down in the lab, or the lab expert doesn't go down and within 15 minutes discover who did the crime and come back. It just doesn't happen that way. So that's kind of a fun part of it. That's why You know, when we're home with my wife, and she's been involved in the criminal justice system herself forever, you know, we see crime shows come on, and a lot of times, for like First 48, they show those guys being interviewed by the police detectives, remember, in the little room? Well, that's real. Those are real videos. I get to watch all those because I have to determine whether or not the statements they give to police are knowingly and voluntarily given. It's called Jackson v. Deno. It's a Supreme Court case. So every time we have a trial, if there was a statement, I have to have a hearing before the trial where I determine after watching that same video and hearing all the other evidence they might put on, whether that defendant knowingly, in other words, they understood what was going on, waived their Miranda rights, and then gave a statement. So they understood their rights, waived them knowingly, and they weren't beaten up with a rubber hose or anything else to get the statement. All right? And that's where the Miranda case came from. It wasn't a rubber hose, but I think there was, and Terry probably knows even better than I do, but there was some coercion that case kind of arose out of, and that law arose out of. You've got to give people in custody. Now, what people don't understand, and this is of interest, is it only applies if you're in custody. You have to be under arrest. Well, that has to be defined what that means. Does that mean if the officer gets you, stops you and wants to just talk to you in general, you're not really accused yet, you might be a person of interest, and they take you out to their car, their unmarked car, they're not in their uniform, and they don't have their gun on their hip, and they're going to, you sit down and let me talk to you. And they tape it, they always tape it. And is that Miranda? Is Miranda required? Is that person in custody? The answer is no, generally, no. Anything they blurt out is not covered. If they're picked up, and they are in the back of the car going downtown, and they blurt things out, that can be admissible, not subject to being thrown out of court, not admissible for Miranda. So it's really interesting. Now we're running out of time. What time is it, Ted?
1 o'clock, I got mine.
Okay, 5 minutes of questions or something, and then we'll start right here.
Yeah, this may not apply in Oklahoma, but it's applying in some states, and so if you can speak from a United States wide, that's fine. If you're going to speak from Oklahoma, that's fine too. But have you ever had Sharia law come up in your court for criminal cases? I know it's something that happened in Oklahoma that they're pleading Sharia law.
Have not had it come up in my court. No one has come in and said, Judge, I want you to apply Sharia law. And I don't know of it being an issue in the Tulsa County Courthouse, because we meet as district judges once a month together, and any issues like that we have can be broached there. It hasn't come up. How would I deal with it if it did come up? I would probably look to see. I just don't think it has any. I haven't had to even research it. I would typically research it.
You wouldn't have subject matter jurisdiction over it anyway.
Right. We have other. I mean, there are those groups that don't recognize the district court system, don't recognize state judges as having legal authority. I can't remember the name. They have different names, but. I had a guy one day in court, he stood up, he was out of custody, and I said, hey, is Joe Jones here? Joe Jones is not here, but Sam Smith is here. It was Joe Jones. I said, aren't you Joe Jones? No, I'm Sam Smith, I'm not Joe Jones. And everybody was going, it's Joe Jones. He's saying he's Sam Smith, but he's not. He didn't want to say his name. He had some sort of objection to the jurisdiction of district courts and the jurisdiction of state judges and this and that. So we do deal with those kind of issues from time to time, but we have not had Sharia law. As far as I'm concerned, I only know one law right now that I apply, and that's Oklahoma law as it is written in the books.
Well, what Mike said bothers me. He says it does have no authority. I thought the authority of the common law was what we operate under here in the United States, not under a foreign law of Sharia law.
Right.
Just because an individual thinks they are outside of the purview of the law, that should not be true. So you should have authority to either throw it out, or you should have a stay and say, I got to understand what you're claiming under that, to be fair. But the current case I'm talking about is where this Muslim guy killed his daughter because she had an affair with outside of marriage.
Was that in another state?
First of all,
I was thinking
what I was
here in
saying was,
Oklahoma.
yeah, what I was saying was they have to prove subject matter jurisdiction, not him. They
I
got to
thought
put
you were saying he wouldn't have any authority.
No,
he does have authority.
He does. It's his court.
No, I didn't say, I don't think I said I didn't have any authority.
No, he has all the
I did.
authority.
Well, I thought you said he didn't.
No, I said they
Oh,
don't
he
have
said,
it.
I didn't say.
I'm sorry.
No, as far as I'm concerned, I have full authority, I don't love a lot, I do my job every day, and that's what I do. So, now, if and when it comes up, then I'll deal with it, but right now it hadn't come up.
I appreciate that.
I just haven't had anybody raise the issue yet. Not that it won't happen, because anything, every day's a new day, and I guarantee you there's surprises every day. Yes.
There's a building just south of 51st and Hudson. Tell us who that's named after.
Warren? No. The Warren family, 51st and Hudson, Buddy LaFortune.
Yes, sir.
My dad, Buddy.
Yes, sir.
The smartest man in the family who did not get involved in politics. He was my uncle's older brother, and he just passed away a few years back. Great man. It just did not get involved in politics, but he loved his community. He was highly involved in his church, and he loved the county park system. And he was the county park board chairman for 30 years. Not that you would have ever read about it or known about it, but he loved it dearly, and that's been a great park system. Not just the LaFortune Park part of it, but the story behind the park is, if you ever go back and research it, it was not our land. It was county land, and those of you that have been around Tulsa long enough to remember, it was always county land. In fact, when I was a little boy, there was that building where they used to have indigent services, and they called it a certain name, which I won't repeat, but back then it was called a certain name, and people would go there that had families that didn't have food to feed the family or shelter. And then I think the county ran cattle on that land. And so at some point in the early 60s, late 50s, actually, late 50s, my granddad got with the county commissioners at the time, and put together this idea for a golf course. And if you all read the story, he loved golf. I don't play